Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm your host, Shana James, and I'm excited to be here today with a dear old friend, colleague, Zan Perrion. And Zan, you've been around since I don't want to make you ancient, but I want to say that you are one of the founders of, the whole pickup movement shifted into more consciousness, I would say, right? Like there was this whole
Sure,
movement
yeah.
in the day of men learning how to pick up women, and it wasn't always the most respectful or the most attuned or connected. And I think you're one of the ones who really shifted it into, all right, how do we actually connect with women in a way and love women and care for women, and support men to have what they want with women. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I started with what was called enlightened seduction,
Oh,
enlightenedseduction.com, because the idea was that, like seduction does it have to have a bad connotation? Because there's a delicious element to it, as you well know,
yeah.
and that isn't manipulation, it isn't deceit, and it can be an enlightened version of it. So that was me back in the day. Enlightened seduction. That's a long time ago.
Section. Well, and you to me, I mean, you are, what do you call yourself? A gypsy pirate was one of the descriptions. And, you live in Romania and you've had a very adventurous, full, romantic life. You kind of remind me of Johnny Depp in a way. That's what
Well, I've traveled the world, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so one of the things I want to talk about today is beauty because you have a really beautiful lens, I would say. And I was reading this on your website. I'm going to read it out loud so men can hear. And then I want to hear you like help us get there, right? Help men get to where you are in the way that you see women. So this is what you wrote. If you could see even 1/10 of the beauty I see in a woman, you too would be seduced. You too would believe. You too would live your life surrounded by boundless beauty and grace. So tell us a little bit. What is the beauty you see in women? And then we can get into how'd you get there and how do we get there?
Well, I'll do it really quickly. I'll say quickly how I kind of ran into this. I was I came out of the wilderness when I was 18 years old. I left home at 13 and I ran a trap line, helped a guy run a trap line. So I have no education after 13 years old.
Yeah.
And I came out of there at 18 because I like girls. But I had no education except for romantic movies. I didn't go to college, didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so I was the quintessential nice guy that was forlorn, love struck, poet writing. And girls would say, I want nothing to do with this guy. He's too available, too needy,
Yeah.
and I said, I'm going to figure this out somehow. I'm going to figure this out no matter what the cost. And so, um, Plato talked about, how there's the ideal form of a chair. And so what you discover if you're on this journey long enough, you have your heart broken when you're young, and maybe the love of your life, for instance, right? And then you date, you start to date 3 or 4 times, multiple experiences and stuff like that, and you break up again, and you go through this. Most people live in that cycle all their lives.
Yeah.
But as you continue this journey that you're talking about, that you've been teaching for all these years, if a man continues on this journey, you start to recognize that there's the essence of the feminine grace.
Mm,
And you start to be drawn toward the strength and the conviction of the feminine spirit,
yeah.
and you start to pursue that and try to understand what that is. And if you continue that journey long enough, you start to understand that we're all talking about the concept of beauty. And I don't mean physical beauty. I mean beauty as a capital B, as a physical entity.
Yeah. Like the essence of
Yeah.
beauty. Mm-hmm.
And so that's what Plato talked about. So we're all going back to the shape, the form of the chair.
Yeah.
And when you have explored the concept of beauty to that nth degree, especially when it comes to aligned with the feminine mystique, now you can go back to square one, which you're just with one girl again. And
Because
because
she's everything.
you know that nobody's perfect.
Right.
You're not perfect. Everybody's broken.
Yeah.
We've all fallen, sinned and fallen short,
Yeah.
but you can center on that again without all the trying and the neediness and the scratching for something more, bigger, faster, that kind of
Yeah.
thing, Yeah, you can
Okay.
relax.
So many thoughts and questions in there. I mean, and one of the things I just want to say from my personal experience is having been with men who are lovers of women and lovers of beauty. it's such a different experience than men who are not, it's like,
Correct.
and they can be great men and, solid and have integrity and power but there's something different. And I feel honored, and adored and cherished and loved and wanted and held in certain ways by these men who are women lovers and beauty lovers, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Like I'm curious how you support men to get there, to see that, to find
That's a
that.
good question because there's an assumption in me since I was this teenager trying to figure it out, and all these years later, that I just assume that men have this
Right.
desire to, but there's a lot that don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
That really do. Certainly, there's the blamers, the ones that blame women for everything, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
There's
but
the
even
blamers, and then there's also the kind of just like sleepers, right? Like
yeah, they
not
just
necessarily
don't know.
blaming, but yeah.
They don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
and when you talk about these concepts to them, and their eyes get opened. I've been talking about this for so many years, and it's the idea that because what I studied when I was young, I said, these lovers of women, what qualities, what traits do they have that other men do not have?
Mm-hmm.
They're not the tallest, they're not the most good looking, they don't have money, they're not in shape. What is it that women cannot stop thinking about them? They twirl their hair when they're thinking about him.
Yeah.
And I said, what is that quality? And so I, I, I wrote a whole book on it. I elicited it. What is those qualities?
That's the
And
alabaster girl.
yeah, the Alabaster Girl. I wrote this book to women. It's actually 400 pages written to women about women. How presumptuous is that? Huh?
Mm. Well,
But
I mean,
it's
as
like,
a woman who works with men, I can understand, right? That there's
yeah,
something
and
there.
what I explained in there to women, I think what I attempted to do, and I think I did it, explain to women why there's some men that that kind of get a free pass. They don't, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just him. That's the way he is. He's congruent. He's authentic in that. He adores life. He adores art. He adores women. He adores you in relationship with him.
Yeah.
He has a lot of devotion for you, right? Because he's caught up. He's a student of life,
Yeah.
and that spirit is irresistible and it's rare.
Mm, it is.
Everyone's just trying to say, what can I take? What can you do for me? And where are we going to be in 5 years? And it's this pick, pick, pick. And
Yeah.
this lover of women, he wants every person, whether it's short term or long, to have the maximal experience possible, so that they go away thinking, "Wow, I encountered something. I touched the divine."
Yes. I
That's
touch
the
the
spirit.
divine. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love what you just said too about, okay, he wants every person to have an experience, whether it's a woman, a man, an older woman, a child, or
yeah,
whatever. I think in that way, it's not limited to, a beautiful woman is the only woman I'm going to
correct.
seduce, right? It's like I'm seducing life. I'm drinking in life, I'm tasting it fully and finding that place in oneself where um life is challenging and life can knock you down, but how do you actually, right, stand up and find the beauty in the midst of that?
And the more I go down this path, and I'm dedicated to lifelong, and I'm still going. I'm still writing a second book about this concept.
Yeah.
We've forgotten things in this modern world. We've
Yeah.
forgotten, like I said to you before the call, we've turned our face away from beauty
Yeah.
in art and architecture and relationships. And, politics is angry and aggressive because we've turned our face away from the aesthetic qualities of life.
Mm.
And now art is all about shock. How can I, shock you with my, cut up a cow? And that's art now, this is we pass for art.
Yeah.
So we've lost our connection to the transcendent quality of beauty, which I think is a
Mm.
real physical thing. And
Yeah.
so the whole idea with Ars Amorata, what we're doing, what you're trying to do is return our face toward beauty so we can see it again. So it dawns on us again.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the whole
Right.
point.
Because if you don't turn your face toward it, it doesn't
It's
dawn on you.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have Ars Amorata, and the subtext of that is beauty restored. But beauty
Mm.
doesn't need us. Beauty I think, is a physical thing like gravity. I think it's a real electromagnetic field. I really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it that you see as you work with men that clouds or turns their head away, turns their face away from beauty?
Well, modern society does. Like,
Yeah.
we lost something. To wax a bit philosophical, I mean, Nietzsche said that, we killed God. God is dead, and we killed him.
Yeah.
He said that. And what he's basically saying, and he was an atheist, he didn't believe in God, but he said, we're at the peril. Our society is in peril because we turned away from things that kept us in communion, kept us, these communal spaces in churches and cathedrals
Yeah.
used to be the places where we would gather together and meet your beloved.
Right.
And,
And
in
feel
that concept,
awe.
yeah, and now we've replaced it with technology and science, which I believe in technology. I love technology and science,
Yeah.
but we replaced it with this, kind of like a humanistic, wring our hands. There's no point. There's
More
no
sterile and
more sterile. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
And,
mm-hmm.
like we used to use words like our beloved,
Mm,
very biblical phrase, but it's real. We
yeah.
used to say it. Now we say partner, my spouse,
Yeah.
but our beloved, I had to facilitate a wedding in America. My niece got married and she said, I want you, Uncle Zan, I want you to be the guy who preaches for us. I'm like, what? So I got ordained, which you can
Nice.
do
Yeah, you
apparently.
can do.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and last summer I did a wedding in Michigan, and my message was that, like, this is your beloved.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at each other with that sense of devotion, which we've lost,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that sense of the beloved, it's beauty is the concept of the sun rising, has beauty to it, and everybody's drawn to it. Atheists, Buddhists, Christians, everybody's drawn to that sunset, and everybody in all cultures and all religions, etc., or atheists, for instance, are drawn to the face of the beloved, the smile of the beloved looking
Mm.
at us and saying it's going to be okay, and we're missing that.
Mm. Tell me more about the it's gonna be okay part.
um, it's the warrior's repose. I'm talking on the men's side of things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's what I call the warrior's repose, and that is the warrior's out there ancient times, and he's fighting the saber-toothed tigers, and he's doing all his battles and stuff, and he's got to stand on this earth and be that, and he crawls back into the cave, and he puts his head in his woman's lap, and she touches his hair and says, it's going to be
It's
okay.
gonna be okay.
He needs to be nurtured too. He's a
Yeah.
king,
Yeah.
he's a warrior.
Yes.
But if you don't have that in your relationships, if you are in a relationship, and this is for the men listening, and
Mm-hmm.
you have a wife, for instance, and she doesn't adore you to the point where she's looking across the crowd and says, that's my man right there, and I'm very proud of who he is.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that reciprocally, if you don't look across the way and go, well, you know what, I'm with her, I'm really proud of who she is as a person,
Yes.
not because she's beautiful, not because she's like, but I just really proud of what she's trying to create, what she's, and I like my girl and I'm proud of her. That's adoration, that's devotion, that's quantum entanglement across a distance. And
Yeah.
that's what, and men are trying to be the guys, the warriors repose. We want to be the guys who have all the answers, but sometimes we need to be nurtured too.
Oh
And
yeah.
and women in relationship with a man who's strong, has leadership qualities, going fight his battles, but she can also nurture to him.
Totally. I love that, right? And that we as women can be powerful and be nurtured and that we get to do the nurturing. And I don't, I don't, there aren't many examples of that, right? How to be two powerful people in the world. Neither one has to be knocked
Correct.
down at all, but
Correct.
right, how to mutually adore each other and nurture each other. I mean, that's a beautiful sentiment.
And it's just as simple. And this is what I tell guys in relationship. They say, well, how do I, with my wife, how do I you don't have to buy a dozen roses. You don't need a hot air balloon excursion. All you have to do is little comments and hints of appreciation every day.
Mm-hmm.
Say, you know what? I'm just looking at you and I think you're an amazing woman. Now, and you're playing Call of Duty and she walks by with her hair in a ponytail, and the greats of all history will stop their game and say, you know what, my sweetie, look at me for a second. I just want to say I just adore you. You're such a,
Mm,
and then go back to playing a game.
yeah.
You don't need to wait for a conversation, comment, it's just dropping seeds of appreciation. And if men did that with their wives, with their girlfriends.
Yeah, and there's a lot, I think there's a lot of waiting. I think people are like, well, I'll appreciate once I get appreciated. And there's a kind of tit for tat, which is definitely, again, away from beauty, devotion.
We're waiting for you to show up so that I know that I can trust you, so I can open up myself a little bit too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you support men to open and trust first, right? To be the ones to, you know, not always, right? But somebody's got
Yeah.
to go first. And if you're
Well,
waiting for it, usually you have to go first.
yeah, there's a big there's a fine line between desire, which
Yeah.
is beautiful, and neediness, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of guys they fall down that camp of neediness, and desire is wonderful. Desire
Mm,
is irresistible.
yeah.
Neediness is like sticky and you know it's not good.
Yeah.
But strong desire without demand,
Uh-huh.
without um
That
without
attachment in a
with
way.
great hope but not expectation, you
Yes.
know?
There you go. Yeah.
So you really have a great desire, and a man who because say guys say what should be my opening line, and it should be something like, "Wow, I've never seen you before. Who are you? How come I've never seen you before, and why are you not in my life?
Yeah.
And now what's your name?"
Yeah.
That's a strong sense of leadership desire. And
Yeah.
guys say you can't compliment because it's needy. It isn't needy because it's come
Mhm.
from desire as opposed to,
Right. I
you
mean, if
know,
you're trying to manipulate with a compliment so you can just,
of
definitely
course.
get her into bed, then
Or
it's
just to get
needy.
her to like you. I mean, like the nice guys will do that, right?
Right.
Oh, you're so beautiful. They say it with the expectation of reciprocity. I'm
Yes.
going to get something in return. I'll buy you a drink, and then I expect something in return.
Yeah.
A man who loves women stands on the stairs and said, "You know what? I believe in life. I believe in myself. I believe in you. I don't even know you, and I'm going to buy you a drink because that's who I am.
Right. Not
Or
because
I'm
I'm
going to
trying to get
compliment your
something.
eyes because I like beautiful things. I'm going to say it, and I'm not afraid to say it. And
Hmm.
there's nothing needed back."
Yeah. I love it. So, and knowing that you've worked with, thousands, tens of thousands of men, do you have any examples of a turning point or like a way that you've helped a man see how to make that shift?
Well, I tell you this. I mean, I've had guys, I've been in Romania for 10 years now, and I have a personal coaching program that I do, which I'm kind of phasing out, which is you come visit me and we hang out, you and me,
Yeah.
and we walk the streets together, and I look at you and hold you up against the wall by your lapels, and take a good look at you, and I have a good sense of the energetic movement you are and why women are drawn to you or
Or
withdrawn from you
repelled. Yeah.
or repelled.
Mhm.
And I can see it within the first evening, right? And I've had I can't tell you how many guys come here who never left. From
Really?
America, from England. There's about 7 or 8 guys here uh, that are here at this moment,
Yeah.
not including all the other ones that stayed and or come back every year. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so like
So why did they stay?
we've
I
had
mean,
guys marry Romanian guys that came to me for coaching.
interesting.
Marry Romanian girls, yeah.
Yeah. And okay, so what is it? So I mean, you can see, I think you and I have a similar, like we can see into the energy pattern or the way that those deeper layers of what's attracting and what's
Yeah.
repelling. And then what has them stay?
You know what? I think what I'm like, I really get the sense like guys are in their head, right? And I'm not a coach of excellence. So, okay, let's get on calls and I'll teach you how to get out of your limiting beliefs. It's not my style, right? There's a lot of coaches doing that. And I've done that for years. What I like to do is like really target something and say, okay, what is the desire of your heart? And for instance, a
Mhm.
man in relationship that it's starting to drift and
Yeah.
he wants to know what he should do and say. Let's sit and you and I will sit and break bread together in communion, and I will tell you what I would do in your shoes, knowing
Yeah.
what I know,
Yeah.
and in that practicality comes the object lesson, comes the getting out of your head and the authenticity and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I really like to look at a man and say, okay, I get here's what you need. This little tweaking. There's a lot of guys been coached,
Yeah.
and everybody's taking a program of some kind or watch YouTube videos, right?
Yeah.
So they could probably coach it to somebody else
Yeah.
because they've heard so much information, right? But I'd like to take that guy and take a good look at him, and say, let's look man to man, eye to eye, and let me take a good look at you, and I'll get a sense of it,
Yeah.
and I can
Well,
tell, and
I'm hearing this like it's like father figure in a way, right? Like
I guess, yeah,
there aren't a lot of mentors, father
yeah,
figures who will look deep into your heart and soul. not just at your resume, not just at how much money you're making, your job, whatever, right? But
Right.
really into your heart and soul, like what matters to you, and why are you here, and why does this woman matter to you, and
Right.
right, like let's get real and let's get deep about this instead of some
Sure.
surface thing.
And what's your legacy? What do
Yeah,
you know? What exists because of you?
yeah,
These are the kind of questions I ask men,
yeah,
like what what is it? What is your motivation? What's your driving force?
yeah, yeah.
What do you look? The question I ask all the time is and I ask women this too. What do you have right now that you're looking forward to?
Mm,
Could be my vacation, or I'm trying to finish my book, or that's interesting.
yeah,
Because if you have nothing in your life right now to look forward to. How heartbreaking is that? You know, I have nothing
right.
that you're right.
Heartbreaking for yourself, and then right, it's not going to be inspiring to another
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that is
I
one of the principles that I work with a lot with men is like, all right, if you're not inspired by yourself, someone's not
exactly,
really going to be inspired by you.
and
And not just that you're doing it for them, but how shitty for yourself, right? To go through
exactly,
life not inspired by yourself.
yeah. That's why exactly. If you are not forgiving yourself, because we've all made mistakes, and we're all like,
Yeah.
nobody teaches us how to do life.
No.
And we kick ourselves and say, "Oh, I screwed it up again. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that." Nobody taught. Were you sincere? Yeah.
Mm.
You tried. You tried to say something funny. It didn't work. You tried to be interesting. It didn't work. But you were sincere. So if you're sincere, you can forgive yourself everything. And
Mm.
once you've forgiven yourself everything, then you can say, you know what? Hey, at least I'm trying. At least I'm showing up. I'm a student of life, which is,
Mm.
you know,
Like that. The forgiving yourself too seems to then, or it takes you out of that kind of the eddy or where you're spiraling
blame. Yeah,
around
I
and
suck. I did it again. I screwed it up again. As opposed to
yeah,
that, it's like, you know what? Did I try my best
yeah,
with the light I have? Yes, I did. Did it not work out? Not the way I wanted it to, but I tried my best. I did
yeah.
what I could on this earth
And
as the
how can I
man.
make it worth it? Like, how can I make that worth it, to move forward and pick my head up out of the shit that I'm looking in and look for the beauty?
Yeah.
I love it.
There you go. And people will read my book and they'll cherry pick things out of it, because I, I'm making this up, but say 50% of the book is like concepts like um, charm and humor and kindness and empathy
Yeah.
and complimenting and being this great energetic, these beautiful energies of man, right?
Hmm.
And guys read all that and they say, "Well, Zan validated me. I am this complimenting nice guy." And they hit the tops of the
The
pothole,
tops. That's what I was just gonna
right?
say. Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then they become nicer nice guys
Yeah.
because they're not reading the rest of the book, which
Yeah.
is this undertone. We have to have this mystique. You have to have mischief. You have to have this desire, this danger in you. You have to
Hmm.
have this desire to bend the world over, this thrusting nature. If you don't, you're just a nice guy. And
Bend
it's
the world over. I like
yeah,
it. I haven't heard it that way.
yeah,
Yeah, right. Like if that drive in you to there's that adoration and devotion, and then the kind of like want and need and desire and the aliveness in that primal part of you. Those both have to be online.
and if you're not that, then there's nothing for women to hold on to. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing for them to be attracted to.
Yeah.
You know, women give birth to men, and women, even though they don't know this, women give rebirth to men,
Mm-hmm.
and most people don't know that.
Yeah.
We're clouded by pornography, which is a lot of physicality going together. It's body parts going together without the without the saving grace of empathy,
Yeah.
or no, a beauty,
Mm.
right? It's like it's physicality, right?
Yeah.
But it's stripped of it's like kitsch, it's like art that doesn't art doesn't that is doesn't have a gift in it,
Yeah.
it's just like it's nice, here's some
Empty.
sentimental pain, yeah, it's empty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so women give birth to men and they give rebirth to men. And if women recognize that, and if men recognize that, because I'll tell you this, and guys will recognize this when I say this, and it's a shock
Yeah.
because nobody says this. When a man enters physically is received as
A
opposed to
woman. Mhm.
got her drunk, and she's like, or she's horny, whatever. But she receives him into her. She says, "Yes, you. I
Yeah.
receive you into my body." At that moment that he enters into her, there's almost a tear that comes to his eye because there's forgiveness in that.
Yeah.
Forgiveness for all the rejections and all, because she received you,
Yeah.
and it's a rebirthing, and it gives, and women don't know they have this power,
Yeah.
but they do.
I know. It makes me sad that, right, women and men both don't know that we have these powers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have all this scrambling and trying convincing. It's a convincing energy. Try to get the girl in bed,
Yeah.
how to get her in 3 easy moves, and women are trying to, how do I land this guy? And it's, if we knew this, the sense of this beloved,
Right.
which is wow. And I'm not talking you have to have there's a lid for every pot and you have to have one girl the rest of your life, but I am saying that every experience should, if it's couched in those terms, becomes sublime, becomes a divine encounter,
Mm.
which is beauty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hold on. This is amazing. I feel touched, and I can feel like I feel the devotion in my heart as you're talking, and it's sweet. It's a really beautiful feeling. So thank you so much for bringing this to the world. And is there any last
Mhm.
thing you want to leave men with before you tell them where they can find more of you?
Not really. Just what I would say is it's going to be okay.
Mm.
And there's nobody that's going to come up. The father figures are long gone. We have to, it's up to us to put our arm around ourselves and look
Yeah.
in the mirror with ourselves and say, you know what? Because there's no
Yeah.
messages for men that are real, So you have to kind of raise yourself at
Yeah.
some point, and so, but it's going to be okay if you can relax, if you can forgive yourself everything. You can say to yourself every single day,
Yeah.
I'm a student of life.
Yeah.
That means you don't have it figured out, but nobody does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can forgive any mistakes. Any mistakes.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And where can men find more of you?
Well, they could probably get the best place, probably. I mean, I have zanperrion.com,
Okay.
but they could go to alabastergirl.com. And if you go there, I printed a bunch of books in Romanian here, or in Romania. And
Okay.
I've got like,
I was like, I'm not sure many people are
in
gonna be able to
English,
read
but
that.
I got them stacked up in my office over there. And so what I do from alabastergirl.com, if they want a book signed by me, they just put in the application. They have to pay for the cost of the book and the shipping,
Mhm.
but I will sign a book and send it to them.
Awesome.
So alabastergirl.com, just like it
Beautiful.
sounds.
Thank you
I'll
so
sign a book
much.
and send it to you with the
Love it.
bookmark.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, great.